Howdy guys, Cub here. Welcome back to another video on a future Minecraft update. This is my update video on the update Aquatic, the official name for Minecraft 1.14, which was announced at Minecon Earth yesterday. And in this video, I'm going to show you guys all the facts that we know about the update Aquatic, as well as a lot of speculation and a lot of things you might have missed in the Minecon announcement. So, let's go ahead and get on into it. Let's see what we got for the update Aquatic. So the first feature is bubble columns, as you can see here. Bubble columns form above magma blocks on the ocean floor. Jeb hinted that these magma blocks and the bubble columns will generate above underwater ravines, which would be another new structure for the ocean floor. Now, the bubble columns are essentially columns of water which have had their buoyancy changed, which is a big deal if you're driving a boat across the ocean and run across one of these. Your boat, if you run across one of these, would then sink, as you can see in this photo. Also, Jeb revealed that items will now be buoyant, meaning they will float on the surface of the water, which has some huge implications, which I want to show you guys right now. So as I said at Minecon 2017, it was revealed that after the Aquatic update, items would, instead of sinking as they currently do in the game, would instead float on top of the surface of the water. So this is actually a huge change to the game and how items are handled. And also, I just want to mention the current mechanics where magma blocks evaporate water, as you just saw right there. It's unclear if this mechanic will actually stay in the game, but if any of you use this, for example, as a randomizer, and the bubble column mechanic takes over, you will need to change up some stuff with the mechanic that you use right here. So just be aware of that. That may be removed entirely. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the water physics for Minecraft 1.14. So as I said, items will be able to float in Minecraft, which presumably means that they will have buoyancy of some type. So in that case, if I went ahead and put an item into a dropper right here and dispensed this item into a single column of water right here, then the item would then float to the top, which makes for a very, very simple and very, very small item elevator. So then we can just pick this up right here, and all would be good. So that is how items would float up to the surface. And now I want to demonstrate the actual bubble columns themselves. So if I go ahead and put my item on top of my column of water right here, and then extend this magma block over so that it then forms a bubble column here, take a look at what happens to that item up there. See, it falls straight down there, and yeah, now we can see the whole bubble column has been created. And if I go ahead and then turn this off, you'll see that the item goes back up to the top of this whole thing. So let me show you that again one more time. I'll make the bubble column here. There's the bubble column. Item falls down. Turn off the bubble column by moving the magma block, and the item will go back up. So this does provide a couple of interesting options for item transport after the Aquatic update. Also, while inside of these bubble columns, you'll be able to breathe as you move up and down within the column. And I believe this is intended to replace the door trick and other tricks that people have used in the past using blocks where there's air gaps, because the water physics will change so that that is no longer possible, which I'll show in just a minute. Also, one final note is that your breath bar is rumored to not, or no longer in the 1.14 update, refill instantly, but rather refill over time, so that when you surface, you don't get all of your breath back at once, it slowly fills up. So that would also be a major change to the underwater as well. The next new change is a new weapon called the Trident, and the Trident is a ranged and melee weapon, which you can use to defeat enemies, as you can see here. Now, the Trident can be thrown similar in fashion to a spear, which Jeb is going to demonstrate here by throwing it at the camera right there. And you can also use it underwater, so it's the first ranged underwater weapon, and it also works while it's raining. There are 3 enchantments that we know of with the Trident, although it may be possible that there are more. The first one is Loyalty, where the Trident is used in a boomerang-esque fashion, where basically it goes out, damages a mob, and then returns to the thrower. The next enchantment is the Riptide, or I've also seen it referred to as the Slipstream Dash enchantment, which is essentially where you can throw the Trident in the water and then fast dash forward toward the Trident. It also works outside in the rain. And the final enchantment we know of is the Impaler, which likely impales mobs and players in some fashion. Let's take a look at a few other things in the backgrounds of this shot here. If we take this shot and zoom in on the left side right next to the wood, are those stone stairs right there? Might be, might not be, but it's fun to speculate. Also, notice the wood. The wood here is actually four-sided wood, which is a block that is not currently in the game, except in creative mode. Again, it's unclear if this is going to be in a survival setting, or if this is just a purely creative build, which they just happened to throw this block in there as well. But I just wanted to mention those. Also, take a look at this animation of Jeb throwing the trident right here. Notice his arm go up right there. That is confirmation that animations of some type are coming to the game, which is further vindicated by a image on the Minecraft.net site where it shows an actual swimming animation with a player holding a trident. So very exciting that some form of player animation is now coming to Minecraft as well. The next confirmed feature came from Grum, who confirmed that all wood types will have a Trapdoor Variant, a Pressure Plate Variant, and a Button Variant, which is very exciting for a number of reasons. The reasons that this is exciting is not only aesthetically, but potentially technically as well, depending on how Mojang decide to implement the wooden varieties of pressure plates and wooden varieties of buttons. Let me demonstrate here that all of the pressure plates currently in the game are different. So for instance, if you throw an item on a stone pressure plate, nothing happens, doesn't detect it. But if you have a player or mob that's on that stone pressure plate, it outputs a signal strength of 15. Wooden pressure plates do react to items as well as players, and gold pressure plates react to the number of items thrown on them. So you see if I have 2 or 3 items on that gold pressure plate, it outputs accordingly. And if I do the same on the iron pressure plate, you'll see that it actually does not change its output, and you just need to keep on adding more different types of items to the iron pressure plate before it starts to put out a different signal strength. The point is that all these pressure plates are different. So if this trend continues, it's not difficult to imagine that potentially, if the wooden pressure plate reacts to items and outputs a signal strength of 15, perhaps the other varieties of wooden pressure plates could output a different signal strength. So for instance, 12 signal strength, or 9, or 6, or 3, or 1 signal strength, depending on what type of wood pressure plate it is. The same could then potentially apply to the wood button varieties, but instead of the signal strength, we would be varying the signal length across the wood button varieties. This is already the case. Signal length varies between the wood button and the stone button by about 5 ticks. The wood is 15 ticks of signal output, and the stone is about 10. And I can demonstrate this if I hit both really quickly. You'll see despite the stone button being hit second, it pops up first. So the signal lengths are different. And this is the proposed changes to signal strength and signal length, which I propose. I think the signal strength with the pressure plates should decrease increments of 3. That would be quite useful for redstone contraptions. And the signal length for the buttons should increment in roughly increments of 2 ticks, which would also be somewhat useful for redstone contraptions. And also the button signal length, I thought about putting it at a little bit lower, like maybe 5 ticks or 8 ticks or something, but I figured that might be a little bit too low for people who use the buttons for opening doors and things like that. So these are my proposed changes. These are not planned to be implemented, but I think if they haven't been suggested already, someone should suggest them to Mojang because they are very useful for redstone builds. Moving on now to coral, kelp, and fish. As you can see, there are a number of different coral on the left-hand side here of different colors, and also half slabs of coral, which you can see here and here on the left-hand side. Also, the kelp is animated, which is, I believe, one of the first animated plants in the game, if you don't count the chorus fruit. Also, there's a new type of plant that looks to be growing on the coral, as well as several different varieties of fish. Now, first of all, I want to say that coral and kelp, Jeb has said, will most likely not be seen together as they are in this short animation. Instead, they're going to split the ocean into warm ocean and cold ocean. So presumably coral would be in the warm, and then kelp might be in the cold, perhaps, or they might have just nothing in the cold, or very few kelp or coral in the cold. But they also will have fish, which you can see here and here. Now, these fish, while seen in the animation, do not look to me to be like any of the 4 fish we have currently in the game. So they may be new types of fish. However, Jeb has said that all 4 of the fish types, the pufferfish, the clownfish, the regular fish, and the salmon, will all be made real and will be able to spawn in the oceans, which you can then capture in a bucket just simply by right-clicking, which will capture the fish in the bucket with water, and then place down somewhere in the world, which then changes the fish that you captured to a persistent fish. So the fish will actually be in the physical world, and you can use that, for instance, for an aquarium or some type of fish tank of some type. So that is very exciting as well. A new mechanic with fish, and fish as an ambient mob in the world. And of course, it wouldn't be the Aquatic update without water physics. And the change to water physics is that water will now be able to occupy the same block as fences and half slabs and potentially other blocks. Now, this is a huge deal, especially for those of you guys who are technical players. And let me show you why. So in that Minecon demo, you saw that the water would be allowed to flow through grass and also through things like fences. And that is different from what it is like in Minecraft 1.12. So here you can see the grass is broken and turns into seeds occasionally. And it also flows through the fences in Minecraft 1.12, which then allows items through, which here is clearly not the case. It's instead stopped by the fence. The reason they're doing this is because they want to essentially be able to eliminate this gap right here between the water and the fence, which is unsightly, especially if you're building underwater. Any of you who have built underwater with half slabs or fences know what I'm talking about. However, there are some challenges and some things that this could potentially break, which has me a little bit concerned. First of all, things like half slabs. The water would flow down on half slabs and then presumably through this gap here, through this half block gap, which has never happened before in the game, I don't believe. And while realistic, that would definitely break a lot of stuff. Same thing with the fence gates right here. So if I go ahead and just close this and put some water here and then open it like this. This is traditionally the very bottom part of squid farms, where squids would spawn in a water column up here and then fall through the fence gates down to their demise below. However, presumably water could flow through these fence gates if the new water physics is implemented, so that would break any squid farms right there. Also, it'll be interesting what happens with pressure plates, because clearly this doesn't make any physical sense here. You'd expect the water to flow over the pressure plates here, which currently it does not. Same thing with the trapdoors. The trapdoors have holes in them, so you'd expect the water to flow out. And even if this was a solid trapdoor, which strangely enough some of the proposed trapdoors for the different wood variants are, which would mean you'd have to have some trapdoors hold back water in this state, while others would not. And then you'd also have to have the open state. The water would flow over this in this state as well. So it's going to be interesting how they handle those. Same thing with cakes. There's a small gap here with cakes, which are technically useful for aligning items. Same thing with chests and ender chests. There are small gaps here where presumably water could flow out, and it'll be very interesting to see how they handle gaps such as these, where full blocks do not hold back water, but maybe they'll make some exceptions for some full blocks. And now it's also a good time to just prepare ourselves for the worst case scenario, where potentially even signs, which have been used forever basically to hold back water, they could also potentially no longer hold water back. So you could have a potential where this water formation would form even if you have signs like this, which would basically break every mob farm ever made. So I'm a little bit concerned about these changes to water physics, but I don't know, kind of excited at the same time, because it does make the builds underwater look a whole lot better, which we will see in the next clip. A few more notes on the changes to water physics. I want to highlight a couple of key areas where the changes would be most dramatic and how they would affect the game, and also provide some potential solutions to those problems. The first problem we would encounter with the new water physics would be problems with item transport. So traditionally in the game right now, we have item transport that works like this. We send the item into a water stream, it goes underneath a half slab, slides across to the next water stream, and then we also have sometimes just signs here that allow items to pass through but not water. If the new water physics was implemented, potentially we could see the water flow backwards here underneath of the half slab, making a situation like this. And if I throw the item in now, you'll see Just sort of bounces back and forth until coming to a rest here. Same thing with the sign. If I get rid of this and the sign doesn't hold back water, the item doesn't go where we want it to go. The solution to this would be potentially something like a one-way valve, which would allow items through, but not water. So the items go straight through, and of course this would not actually be here. This is just for purposes of demonstration. And so basically you'd be able to throw an item in, it would go through the valve, but it would the valve would hold back the water unless it received a redstone signal that allowed the water through, except not like that with a lever actually. So yeah, that would be the one-way valve, allowing items through but not water unless you gave it a redstone signal to specifically allow the water through, which would actually add a lot more functionality than what we have right now with just the standalone slabs and the signs. The second problem would be mob transport, both horizontally and vertically. So here's the horizontal mob transport system. That is sort of the traditional system. You have water streams like this with a specific configuration of signs holding back the water. This would be totally broken if signs do not hold back water anymore, and same with the vertical mob transport right here, this traditional mob elevator right here. And let me just demonstrate how this thing works in case you haven't seen it before. Basically you have a mob, and the mob swims up from one block of water to the next with the air pockets allowing the mob to breathe on the way up so it doesn't drown. Now the solution to this is one that was very popular back in Minecraft 1.9, and that is the Translocator. So many of you probably remember the 1.9 translocation piston glitch, which allowed you to essentially translocate a mob or a player from one area to another area. And this is essentially the idea with this. We'd have a new block that would translocate mobs and players from one location to another location on top of the translocator block. Let me go ahead and demonstrate this and how it would work. If I go ahead and place down a zombie here, and I change it back to easy so that I can actually spawn him in. Let's name him Marty, because he's going to be like Marty McFly and go back to the future right here. Now, if I press this button, it will activate this redstone line, which will activate all these observers, which are going to be our translocators. And the translocator would check if there's enough space for the entity to show up here. So check that, this zombie's 2 blocks tall, so there's 2 blocks here, so it will translocate it into this. If there was just 1 block like this, it wouldn't work. And let's go ahead and see how it works. So hit the button, boom, 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 boom. Up goes the zombie, and he's at the top now. So that is the Translocator, a very popular bug back in Minecraft 1.9, and this would solve both the vertical mob transport problems, as you just saw right there, as well as the horizontal mob transport problems as well. Next thing that needs to be addressed would be the mob and player drops. So mob drops through lava like this, where signs hold back the lava, and then player drops from height through water like here, down through a water drop, which allows you to take no fall damage and easily walk away. The water you could put down on the ground, but a lot of players don't want to be landing in water and then have to swim out. It's much easier just to do this, and much more useful. And this, like I said, is used traditionally in a lot of mob farms, so this would be very, very useful to keep in the game. The solution for this is a lot more tricky without a block specifically, or exactly like the sign, but I imagine it could be like fence gates, where one state covers the entire block here. Obviously the fence gate doesn't, and you could assume that water might be flowing through this in the near future in the Aquatic update. But you could imagine a block that maybe like has one state where it covers the water but is transparent, and another state where it is covering the block still but players can fall through. So this would be maybe like a magic block or an enchanted block of some type that would allow this and allow players and mobs to simply just fall right on through in one state but not another state. That would be very, very useful to have as well. So anyway, those are just some potential problems and potential solutions. Obviously, it's much more complex than that, but I just wanted to give some potential ideas on how Mojang, with a couple new blocks, could easily have both the new water physics and not have players lose current functionality. And the next clip is Shipwrecks, which are a new structure that will be found on the ocean floor. And here is the ship. You can clearly see that there are no air pockets here. despite the fact that there's fence and half slabs and it looks like stairs in there as well. So that will be a new feature you can find on the ocean floor, and presumably it will have some treasure in it, perhaps even the Trident. That's just speculation. There's no confirmation of that, yes or no. Also, a new ocean feature is Icebergs, seen here, which also, by the way, just a quick note, has packed ice, which means you no longer have to find a ice spikes biome to get packed ice. I also want to point out one really cool thing with these icebergs. In that fact is that most of the iceberg is actually underneath the water. So if you look very closely, and I'll actually outline it right here, you can see the iceberg extends quite a distance down into the ocean itself. And so you can imagine a scenario where you dig out the entire iceberg from top to bottom, and as you're digging it out from top to bottom, you're obviously going to enter the water when digging down, and eventually you reach into the water. So the potential exists you could dig out the thing from top to bottom, and then as you're digging out the blocks on the bottom, the water on top refreezes and traps you underneath. So that's just something I thought was kind of cool to think about, and that could potentially happen, which doesn't happen currently in the game. Anyways, that's the iceberg, and now let's move on to a new animal for the ocean, the dolphin. And here is the dolphin. You can see they swim quite fast and behave as you'd expect dolphins to. I'm sure most of you guys know about dolphins. They jump out of the water, leap out of the water, just like that. And they will also have one additional thing that will accompany their behavior. They will lead the player towards treasure. So if you follow the dolphins, they will lead you towards treasure, presumably perhaps the shipwreck that is found now on the ocean bottoms. And that is the dolphin. And lastly, but certainly not least, the flying mob, Mob B, called the Monster of the Night Skies, was selected by the fans to be added to the game. This flying mob will spawn at high altitudes and will seek out players who have not slept in many days. It will then swoop down and bite their flesh. So it'll be interesting to see how they implement this mob, as it is one of the more unique mobs that will ever have been added. Just a few other pieces of information I want to pass on to you guys about the 1.14 update and about the future of the game itself. The devs have said at Minecon that they are not currently looking to add vertical half slabs. However, they have confirmed that more slabs will be added, so presumably more than just the coral half slabs that we saw in the previous clip. The next two changes are changes which I cannot 100% guarantee are true, but I fear that they are, so I'm going to report them here. So, it is rumored that in the update Aquatic, combat has changed once again, so that you can't right-click to block with a shield, and instead you just need to shift or move backwards to block with the shield. And this goes hand in hand with the offhand nerf, which is a severe nerf of your offhand, such that you will no longer be able to use a bow, you won't be able to use torches or blocks in the offhand, and the offhand itself will only be allowing certain items to be placed within it, such as shields, maps, compasses, and totems, which is presumably being done to make all versions of the game similar to the Pocket Edition and Windows 10, which you can only place the shields, maps, compass, and totems in the offhand. Also, world generation is changing to allow new content to be added more easily, and the devs said that there will possibly be underground biomes coming in the future. So that would be an awesome thing to look forward to. Finally, this mob here on the screen was not shown at Minecon. It was shown in the teaser image, and it clearly has a ender chest texture on the side of its head, as well as on the side of its body and arms. However, this has now been confirmed to have been a false image just to generate hype about Minecon and about the vote for all the new mobs. So we'll have to wait and see about what other features are in the Aquatic update. They did say there was a lot more they didn't show, so I'm looking forward to see what they got for us in addition to what was already shown. Anyways, I think that's it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I do have videos on the Minecraft snapshots, reviewing every one of the snapshots, and also have an awesome Let's Play on the Hermitcraft server, which I highly recommend you check out. Anyways, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Cub. Goodbye.